Hello, everybody. This is Zero to Hero, where everyday Canadians are getting ahead with real estate. This is the show where we dive into the success stories of several real-world investors. We dive into the strategies that help take their business to the next level. You get to know the who, learn the how to get what you need to succeed. Okay, everybody, I am so glad. I'm so happy this morning. I am so glad because I got an amazing guest for you today. I think this is going to be an awesome one. And so today, I want to introduce you to Deji Oduntan. And let me know if I got that right, but let me tell you a bit about him first, all right? The reason why I am bringing him on and the reason why I want you to listen to his story today is because he has been able to do extraordinary work within the real estate space, and he's just getting started. Look, he actually has a history of doing business in the past. He actually co-founded a company, and in Series A has raised over $5.3 million. And he also in business has a tech background, and he's now at this current moment in time and beyond looking to build a real estate business and investing in an active business, and also will be presenting something that I think for those who want to really get in on something new that is really potent, and I think you would definitely want to listen into what he's got work coming on in the background. By the time you listen to this episode, it'll already be out, and so we'll be definitely talking about it in this episode. But first of all, I want to welcome Deji. Deji, how are you doing today?
Daniel, thank you very, very much for that intro. You are definitely the hype man. I'm doing very great today. Thank you for having me on this podcast.
Oh, the pleasure is absolutely mine. I really think you're going to add a lot of value here today. And so let's just get right into it real quick. Okay, so you have a tech background. You actually have a history of business and raising capital. Talk to me why you decided to get into real estate.
So that's the story that I love to speak about. And I usually always start off when I moved into the country, which was about 2 years ago. So I came into Canada, of course, with the experience of tech and startups. All I knew then was active income, right? Which is exchanging my time 24 hours a day building a startup. And then I moved into the country, and during the pandemic, I started to really do research about the new country that I just came into, what movers and shakers in this side of the world, are doing. And I found out that a lot of them had some exposure to real estate. And what was absolutely mind-blowing for me was just the concept of leverage, the concept of passive income. It was so different from what I was used to. And I felt it was definitely something worth considering, worth investing my time to learn. And that's what took me on that journey from, what I knew, which was active income, to the passive income space. So that's really, how I started, thinking through real estate.
No, you make a great point about understanding the value of leverage, because that was something that was really big for me as well. And also getting some perspective that this is not a common thing across the world. Like, just take renting, for example. If you want to rent in certain countries, you actually have to put at the minimum 12 months up front, a year's rent up front. Now just think about that. Imagine in Canada, if as a tenant, you had to put 12 months of rent up front. For the landlord, that's amazing. That means you got security for a year and you ain't got to worry about rent for 12 months. But for the tenant, that's extremely difficult because not many people have that much saved up, let alone can save that up when it comes to their lifestyle. And so with leverage, you now have the opportunity to use other people's assets, or use credit, or use whatever the case may be, so that you can get ahead and accomplish what you've been able to do. And so that's really, really good point there. Now, even though you understood this, and this was something that was very mind-blowing to you, what was something that was limiting your belief that you could be doing it?
Honestly, man, there were a lot of things. When I started learning about real estate, a lot of things didn't make sense to me, right? I see people buying properties worth millions of dollars. And I asked myself, like, how the hell would I buy this? Like, I probably have a couple of thousands in the bank. So when I think to the limiting beliefs that I had then, one was definitely the fact that I needed to save money to buy a property. For the longest time, I kept beating myself up that, man, when would I ever save, 5% or 20% to ever buy one property, right? So that was one limiting belief that I had then. And when I look back now, I'm like, wow, like what a huge disservice, that is for you not to know how things are done, right? Another one was obviously the mindset of using my cash or my money to invest. Like I always thought I had to come up with the money. Whenever I hear people say real estate, I'm like, man, how would I ever get into this space with my money? Because I don't have enough, right? And I didn't know the difference between having money and having access to money, right? So even when I was having conversations, I would say I don't have the money. And it was only until someone asked me, do you have access to money? Like, you have a job. Have you even explored your line of credit? Do you know what you can get with your credit score? And that was the first time I knew what the application of my credit score was. Up until then, I only saw it as a number, but I didn't know what that number could get me. And then in less than a week, I went to the bank and I got a credit limit that was close to maybe half of my annual salary. And I'm like, wow, just that one conversation. So there were a lot of, I can't even begin to state the number, but, over time, those limiting beliefs have been, I've been taking them away one by one.
Man, that's powerful. Just understanding that you're one conversation away from having a complete change in your direction. That just goes to show you that it really does matter who you surround yourself with, because if you're surrounded with people who are growing, who are stretching themselves, who are applying themselves, who are putting in the work, they're going to come across golden nuggets along the way that if you are in their vicinity, if you're in their circle, if you're in their network, you will be able to glean from their knowledge and thus propel you on your own journey. And so that's really, really important. I really like that. So in real estate, fast forward today, what is the main strategy, if you have one, or what is the main focus that you're doing in real estate today?
So right now it's been, and it still is, wholesaling. Going forward, it's going to be a different, it's going to be a slight variation of wholesaling, but it's still going to be wholesaling, right? And the reason why I got into wholesaling was primarily because I identified what my why was, and at the time, when I decided to take action was earlier this year. I think that was like April, May. That was when I decided to take action. I had just come into the country like a few weeks prior. And, I was aware that my family was coming into the country a few months in the year. So around the summer period. So I knew that I needed to take action now. If not, they were going to come in and, things wouldn't have been as expected. I wouldn't have been able to hit my goals. So I knew that I had a few months to take action. And when I went through all the different strategies, wholesaling was, that strategy that really resonated with me, resonated with my why. It had the fastest return on time. It allowed me to get funds in relatively quickly versus other strategies. So that was why I started with wholesaling.
You made two great points that I found that is inconsistent with every successful investor. They have a strong why and they take massive action. So important. Even if you have a strong why, if you don't take action, you're not getting anywhere. And if you take action, but you don't have a strong why, you may burn out. You may not last the journey. You may change direction. You may not have the focus you need to stay the path and get to where you need to go. And so I really, really like that you mentioned those two things, which I didn't even ask. You just mentioned, and it just goes to show you that these are the common traits between successful investors such as yourself, which is awesome. And you're talking, you didn't mention that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
The way you said successful investors like myself, I'm like, oh, wow, that's definitely great. I haven't really been taking stock of my journey over the past few months, but definitely looking forward to hear more of that over the next few months.
Dude, look, man, you're still in your 9 to 5, right?
Yes.
And the fact that you've been able to do this without quitting your job, be able to stay focused and put in the hours, put in the time, right? I know we were talking offline, but how much in fees have you made to date, even while working a 9 to 5?
Gross fees are about 200. I have another deal right now that I'm looking to send out today. Fingers crossed. It's a single family in Mississauga, and that should take it to maybe close to 300. So
we are sitting at 200 in gross fees right now, with a deal on the table soon to be pushed out to your network, upon which, if it is closed on the terms and conditions that you're hoping for, you will definitely get close to $300,000 in fees with a 9 to 5. So this just goes to show you that you absolutely can do this business, even if it's not 300. Imagine if you added $30,000 to your income this year. How much would that help where you are currently at? Imagine if you added another $40,000, another $50,000 to your income. How could that change your financial future today? And this is why I have Deji on, and this is why I talk about those who do the things that are required to become successful, because you are absolutely bearing the fruit of your work. You planted the seeds when it comes to having a strong why, taking action, being consistent, showing up, leveling up your network, and now you're reaping the benefits by getting this income so that you can propel yourself even further, which I find very, very, very encouraging. Now, here you're talking about you're doing wholesaling, but you did say that you may be doing a bit of a pivot. Maybe not a complete change, but a bit of a pivot. Now, for those who are listening to this podcast, you will already have done what you are kind of talking about. So why don't you go ahead and share with us, what are your plans? What are you looking to do, and why should people be interested in it?
Okay. Thanks, Daniel. So as I mentioned earlier, like for the past few months, I started doing wholesaling, doing it as a 9 to 5, right? I also mentioned like the groceries that I've done close to 200. And I have done that with a couple of partners. And I've had to do that because, I work in 9 to 5. I don't necessarily have the time, to do this activity, given that wholesaling requires a lot of effort, right? So I've had to work with a lot of partners, to offset the time that I don't have. But what that has allowed me to see or do is I've been able to, experience the ups and downs of wholesaling, the pros and cons. Thankfully, I've been able to get sizable fees. So I haven't done so many deals, but the fees have been sizable in itself. What that has allowed me to do is to understand the levers that need to be pulled to create a service that can then provide value to investors like myself who are working an active job. So this service is either for investors or for realtors, right? But ultimately, it's for anyone who has an active income. So from an investor standpoint, if you have an active business in real estate, or you work in 9 to 5, or you're a real estate agent that has like that current active source of income, this is the service for you, because those people are looking for passive strategies, right, to complement their active income. And the options that they have now are, private lending and buy and hold, right? But when you look through, the return on investment on those passive strategies. So take, for example, you have $60,000 by January 1st, 2022, and you want to take stock of where you're going to be in December 31st, right? If you do a buy and hold, you put maybe $60K as a down payment, right? You get a property cash flowing at maybe $500 a month. So in a year, you're probably getting like maybe $6,000. That's like a 10% return. Of course, you have the house, right, that you benefit from other things, but your return is about 10%. If you put that $60,000 into like private lending, right, you could also get 10 to 15%, right? So those are two passive income strategies that people have today. Now, what I'm looking to launch is an alternative, right? To say, hey, you have that $60,000, rather than putting it in the property, rather than private lending it, rather than using it to pay wholesale fees, which, by the way, you could pay wholesale fees of about $60K today. Rather than doing that, why don't you fund a wholesale campaign? Completely passive. All you do is fund the campaign. It's as passive as a buy and hold. It's as passive as private lending. You just fund the campaign, and then you get checks based off of the campaign. Of course, wholesaling comes with its risk, but with the systems that we've put in place over the course of a year, with $60K spread across 12 months, even if it's $5,000 every single month, imagine funding a wholesale campaign with $5,000 every month. You can make upwards of 2x to 10x your return. That completely trumps any returns you get via private lending, via buy and holds. So the service is called wholesaling made passive. Wholesaling has traditionally been an active income source. Investors have to do 1,001 things to get that check. But now, with the service that we are putting in place and with all the structures, processes, systems, and teams in place, all the investor needs to do is to fund the campaign, and they get a share of all the leads or all the wholesale fees that come out of that campaign, which is in multiples. So for passive income, you no more get a fixed return. Now you get multiples of the upside. So that's what the service is.
No, that was awesome. Wholesaling made passive. Wholesaling made passive. And we'll definitely link all the information of what you're talking about in the show notes so that those who want to check that out, whether it's a website or whatever else you have going on, we'll definitely link it below so that people can check it out. But so this is really cool because unlike being a traditional landlord, when you do wholesaling made passive, you're not dealing with tenants or toilets. You're investing into a business, and by investing and being a part of that business, you will definitely be able to reap the rewards. Because you are investing in the campaigns that go out. You already have a established system that people are investing into that can only make the pie bigger, and thus everybody winning. Is that right, or how would you explain it?
You captured that very correctly, right? The investor is basically leveraging on the upside of the system that we're building, right? And, probably in the show notes, we can always speak, or I could share more about the services that are included in that package. But an investor has every single thing that they need at their disposal for this to work, and they don't have to do any of it. So the business handles every single thing. So it's more like a subscription service, and they just enjoy the upside of the wholesale fees.
So if you're someone who has maybe like they can give maybe $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month. Maybe they don't have $200,000 like an accredited investor to give you. Can they still be a part of this program?
Sure. So the 5,000 a month was just for one of the plans that we mentioned. There's obviously lower tier plans for as low as $1,000 a month, right? Those plans don't have as many services or as many features or benefits as the other plans. So for example, if you go with the 5,000 per month plan, you have a dedicated salesperson who does all the running around for you. So all the offline strategies that we put in place, that person would do it to complement the campaigns that we send out, right? We also have an additional social media budget for the larger plans. But for the smaller plans, right, it's just, leveraging the flyer campaigns that we do. So you get it at a lower cost. You have like your tracking numbers. So you always know how much you make. You get access to all the calls that come into that number, but you don't get like the advanced stuff like a dedicated salesperson working on your behalf every single day.
Wow. So there's definitely a number of options here, and you have the opportunity to invest in. You can really get out what you put in. So we'll definitely link the information in the show notes so that people can get more information about it and reach out to you if they're interested. I think this is definitely something cool because this is not like anything I've seen currently in the Canadian real estate marketplace. And I think giving people an opportunity to invest in an active business without having to be the active person is definitely a really cool opportunity that I'm excited to see how it goes out in 2022. Speaking of 2022, how early will people be able to join this?
So this just launched a few days ago, and I'm currently speaking with a couple of investors who had signified interest. So we have a few partners that have committed already to a few locations. I'm definitely having those conversations now ahead of the month of January. So anyone who is interested can obviously feel free to reach out to me. We would have the conversation, would understand what their goals are, would understand what their why is. And then once there's some alignment there, then we get a sense of when they are ready to start funding campaigns. And if they're ready as early as January, then we sort of earmark them for January, and then we kick things off from there.
Look, I want just everybody, if you're interested, just book a call with Deji. He's more than happy to talk to you. And I think that'll be a great conversation to really help you understand where you're at and what makes the most sense for you and how you can work together potentially with him, because you already see what he's doing in the marketplace. If he's able to get over $200,000 in fees while working a full-time job, can you imagine if he ever decides to go full-time, what potential he has with his business that he's growing? And so it just goes to show you he's definitely a real player in this space. Now, let's wrap it up with a few more questions, Deji. So talk to me about your latest deal. Give me the numbers and let's break it down. So I'll give you the floor. Tell me of your latest deal, and from start to finish, just walk us through what that deal was like.
Okay, so are you referring to the one that I have on the go that I'm about to send out, or like the most recent one? So I could speak about both of them if there's time.
Sure, let's go with that.
Okay, so the one that I assigned 2 weeks ago, that was a deal in Peterborough, and that was actually interesting because someone reached out to me on Facebook from Cashflow Tribe, actually, and he wanted to get into real estate. He wanted to get into wholesaling, and then he reached out to me, and I shared some thoughts as to how he can go about this, and just explained how we could potentially work together. If he has a deal, he could bring it to me. If he has a deal on that contract, we could split the fee. I take about, a certain percentage. And if he just has a lead that he doesn't know what to do with, he could just pass it on to me and we give him a fee. And 2 days later, he calls me that he has a deal. And I was mind blown. I'm like, wow, that was fast. And it was a deal in Peterborough. The seller wanted to offload the property. They had like a loss in the family, and they wanted to just offload the property. The property had a few open permits or open notices on. So the late husband had, done things the wrong way. They had some permits on the property, and they didn't want to go through that stress of having to work with the city to get everything sorted out. So they just wanted to sell it. And, he brought it to me. So I sort of worked with him to, assign that deal. And how the process went was, I worked with him to get it under contract. We did a negotiation together. And then once it was under contract, we then started the process of, disposing of it. It was actually one of the most interesting processes that I've gone through from a disposition standpoint, because it took the entire day, right, to dispose of it. When we put it out, we got multiple calls, multiple messages. I remember from morning till about evening, I was on the phone with buyers, qualifying buyers, trying to get the best buyer, basically. We eventually assigned it for about 30K above asking. So we put it out at 580. We assigned it for 610. And it was a 50K wholesale fee. And that's between myself and the person. And the reason why I mentioned that is because he reached out. So he took action, right? He wanted to get into wholesaling. We had a brief call. I told him, if you have a deal, bring it to me. I would walk you through the process and I would help you assign it. And he got the deal. He called me and we made a 50K deal. So like when we assigned the deal, both of us were speaking and we're like, man, we haven't met before. I've never met you before. You've never met me before, but we just did a $50,000 deal, right? And I think that's the power of networking. And by the way, he's in Cashflow Tribe. So he reached out to me from the Cashflow Tribe Facebook group. So definitely a very interesting story there. So that was, I think, 2 weeks ago. The one I have under contract now is a single family in Mississauga. We're looking to offload it for 1.3 million. It's in one of the very desirable neighborhoods in Mississauga. It's like 5 to 7 minutes from Square One, from Dixie Mall, from the Lakeview community, from the GO station. And houses in that area are selling for like 1.6. So we are looking to sell it for like 1.3. So, it requires a lot of work because the seller already has gutted the interior, wanted to do his own renovation, but ran out of funds. So any investor who's picking this up would obviously have to spend, around 100K in renovations just to take out some of the stuff that's there, put new finishing, and then could sell it for like 1.6, right? So that will be going out today, except, some of the people that I've shared with already pick it up before it goes out. So that's just a quick snapshot.
Man, that just goes to show you what's possible, ladies and gentlemen. You just saw a snapshot of what activity Deji takes in order to move forward. Like one deal where he's working with someone, and mind you, this was within the Cashflow Tribe Facebook group. So it really goes to show you, if you are sitting on the sidelines and just watching all the posts and just looking at what everybody's doing and not jumping in and taking action, sending that message, sending that comment, reaching out and connecting. You just never know what would be on the other side of connecting with people like Deji was taking action. $50,000 over an initial Facebook group connection. Can you imagine that, ladies and gentlemen? Do you know what the ROI is of that? That's infinity as far as I'm concerned, because it ain't cost you nothing to reach out to somebody on Facebook so you can build a relationship upon which you then take action and get rewarded from it. Now, is this going to be the case every single day you reach out to someone on Facebook? No, it's not. But if you take action on a consistent basis, will you increase the chances of you connecting with someone upon which you could do a deal with? Yes, you can. And that's the name of the game, ladies and gentlemen. So, Deji, I think you really laid out an example of what's possible when you network, you connect, and you take massive action. So I'm going to leave you with this one last question. And then I'll ask about how people can connect with you, which we'll put in the show notes. When it comes to starting out, people are listening to you, they're inspired by your story. They also got a 9-to-5, but they don't have $200,000 in gross fees and counting. What would you say to them if they want to get started and maybe start on the same journey you have?
Okay, so shameless plug here. Reach out to me, wholesaling made passive. Okay, well, that aside, so there are a few things that I know that I didn't do so well. One was I slept on social media. I haven't done so well there. So that's obviously an opportunity, right? Because even if you are just starting, there's value in sharing what your goals are and sharing what you are working on, right? Because that then attracts people to you. So I haven't done so much of that, but now I've hired a bunch of VAs, and one of my VAs is dedicated to social media alone. So you're going to start seeing a lot of that over the next few days, right? So I've removed myself from that equation. I've removed myself from that equation of not posting. So that's one thing I slept on. The second was, like I would say, if someone has a 9-to-5, right, just reach out to people, get the right education, surround yourself with people who are doing exactly what you want to do. So once you have an idea, like the first thing, I probably didn't mention this. So the first thing is knowing your goals and knowing your why. And I think until you know what your goals are, until you know what your why is, a lot of your activities wouldn't be focused. Well, the moment you say, okay, this is my goal, this is why this is my goal, and then this is probably my personality. So this allows me to know how I can achieve this goal and what the why is. Once you have those things in place, then you know the people to reach out to, right? So there are mentors who have strengths in certain things. There are people who have experience in certain things. You don't want to reach out to someone who is a master landlord when you want to do wholesaling. You don't want to reach out to someone who is a master wholesaler when you want to be a landlord, right? So focused conversations, very targeted conversations, those things prevent you from wasting time. It just guides you in the right path, and then you're sort of following the person who is exactly where you want to be. And then it's then easier to, avoid mistakes on that path that you've chosen.
Golden nuggets upon golden nuggets. Let me recap real quick before we shut it down. You got to, first of all, check out Wholesaling Made Passive, link in the show notes. Number 2, social media. Understand that if you are looking to be a player in this space, people will be looking you up on social media. They will be seeing what kind of person are you, and they will be judging you based on your social media. Let's be very, very clear. Let's just call it what it is. Because if they don't know you personally, they're going to find every reason to figure out who you are, and they will leverage social media to that degree. And so definitely use that as an asset and not as a liability to the brand that you're looking to build in the real estate space. And then number 3, know exactly what you want, take action, and even more importantly, follow specifically the people who are doing exactly what you're looking to do. One thing I recently did is I started cutting out listening to all kinds of great speakers. Mind you, I said all kinds of great speakers. I cut them out because I'm listening to too many voices and I'm getting distracted. So now I nailed it down to a few voices who are doing exactly what I want to do that I'm going to be paying attention to so that I can model myself after their success and be able to replicate the same. And so I think those are great counsel that I'm glad you shared. Now, last question, my man. How can people connect with you? All the information that you mentioned will be put in the show notes, but just so we can hear from you, how do we connect with you?
So everyone can connect with me via my business social media handles. So it's Deals Estate CA on Facebook and on Instagram. Reach out to me there. Over the next few days, you'll start seeing a lot more stuff. I haven't really been sharing so much stuff over this past year, but that's the best place to connect. That's the best place to reach me. That's where we've been putting a lot of our social media and brand efforts, on. And over the next few days, again, you're going to see a lot of fantastic content coming up. So Deals Estate CA.
Dealsestate.ca. That we'll put that down below so people can click on it. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the deal. Look, you have gotten a lot of golden nuggets, and I really, really want to encourage you as we're going into the new year or in the new year, depending on when you're listening to this, you need to take action. Point blank, period. And if you have heard anything of value from this episode, share it out. Definitely love to get more people listening to this episode and to the show. And so want to thank you for tuning in. And until next time, take action on what you learned. Otherwise, we ain't going nowhere. This has been Zero to Hero. I hope you took something out of it. Be sure to take action so that you can get results just like our guest that you've listened to today. Stay tuned for the next episodes, and we'll see you on the next one.